hi to everybody as they come in. Aloha.
Aloha.
Welcome, everybody.
Everyone is in from the waiting room, and I'll continue to let people in. So you should begin.
Okay, great.
Okay. Well, aloha, everyone, and welcome. We're greeting you here. Sister Malia and I are greeting you from Hawaii, and we're very happy that you could join our workshop.
Yes, aloha. Thank you for coming. It's nice to see your faces.
It's her, and this is Karma Lekshe Tsomo. Yeah.
Mhm.
Es que no sabía si ese era el pelo de ella o qué. Ya, aquí, el pelo.
Okay.
Okay, so we decided to introduce ourselves a little bit, and I'm Karma Lekshe Tsomo. I've been involved with Sakyadhita since the beginning, and I teach Buddhist studies at the University of San Diego in California. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So Sister Malia and I have been spiritual friends since 1994, since the visit of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Hawaii. And so we're sort of the sister act in Honolulu, and we go everywhere together and we do different things together, teaching each other's classes, and yeah, have a lot of fun, actually. So we drink bubble tea together at a shop near her university, Chaminade University. And we would go and have a nice, chat over bubble tea. Does everybody know bubble tea? And so this was our tradition. And then one day she was busy, which she was often busy, but I decided to go and have bubble tea myself. So I went to the shop, and when I went up to the window to order the bubble tea, the woman said, "How can you be friends?" I said, "Excuse me? How can you be friends? You belong to different religions." I was really shocked when she asked that. And it got me thinking about the fact that, maybe the kind of spiritual friendship Sister Malia and I have is not so common. Often people are siloed, sort of almost segregated according to their friend group or their religious group or their cultural or ethnic identity group, maybe their university, different identities, right? But that friendships across religious traditions were not as common as we might have assumed. So that was what got me thinking about this topic. And that's what we hope to discuss today. So Sister Malia, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Aloha, everybody. I'm Sister Malia. And my work with, I met Karma Lekshe Tsomo, yes, in 1994 with the Dalai Lama. And from there, then I've been involved in interfaith work, actually even before then. But one of the things that was interesting was, I remember in the Thailand conference, as I was exiting the campus, that one of the volunteers had asked me exactly the same thing. How can you two be friends? And how can, he become friends, with others of other faiths? And then I said, well, it just takes an interest. We're just saying hi, or just, beginning with a smile. And so that's how friendships can develop. But another time when on Hawaii, because we eat together, we were at the Greek restaurant, and I didn't know that someone was filming us, and it ended up on Twitter, Whole Hungry Hawaiian, which is a kind of in Hawaii. And so my student said the next day, "Oh, I saw you, with somebody in the Greek restaurant," and it was just like, you know, how could you be with, I mean, so it's so different. Who was that? Who was it that you were with? And so then I explained to them. So yeah, kind of celebrities in that way. But otherwise, I'm grateful to, friendship takes time to cultivate. I mean, there are some times when we, you know, have our, you know, like any kind of relationships. But then it's for like, what purpose are we seeking? And, you know, how does the journey, so that helps the pace of the journey, you know, growing together. Thank you. So let's begin then with some little questions. And so because I have the enticer here, this is called Godiva. So Lekshe, I have a Godiva for you. And you can get it later. It's a chocolate. See, she likes chocolate. I know that about her. So I get to ask the first question. Come on, we just had 10 questions for best friends, right? So, what are the top 3 things that stress you out?
The top 3 things I think is driving, computers, yeah, computers, and if the car breaks down.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. I do remember driving. One time we were in LA at the Dalai Lama's Enlightenment conference, and I was driving, or she was driving on the freeway, and we were about to merge. And she says, I can't do this. I can't do this. I said, Lekshe, go, go.
Oh, that was
So
terrible.
after that, I began to drive. Okay.
Yes, good.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
So you get to go next.
Oh, now the thing is, I can't find my questions.
Oh, yes.
Let's see. Oh, here they are. Here they are. Okay, so what's your all-time favorite dessert?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Oh,
Yes.
great. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
I am definitely a morning person. And that gives you 2 questions. So I get the 3rd question. What is your favorite holiday and why?
My favorite holiday is the Buddhist birthday. And I love to celebrate it in different countries to see how the different temples. Sometimes go around to all the, you know, before the pandemic, go around to visit the different temples. And sometimes they celebrate it on different days. So that's so much fun. Okay.
And since we went back to back with questions, I'll ask you, what do you do for recreation or self-care?
Self-care. That's a bit anti-Buddhist, but anyway, I think yoga and meditation.
Okay. Okay, your turn.
Okay, so let's see. What is your favorite book and why?
My favorite book has always been The Way of Silence by Basho, because I really like the, I actually bought the book when I was maybe like in 4th grade for a quarter at the school library. And it's just filled with haiku and especially, I don't know, even at 4th grade, I was mesmerized by the death poem at the end. And so, you know, I keep crafting my own death poem for some reason.
In 4th
That's my
grade?
favorite book.
It's very precocious. Okay, well, okay, so now you just won $10,000. What are you going to do with the money?
Donate it to your nunneries. Donate it to your nunneries.
Thank you, Amito. So kind. Talk about cross-religious friendship. I mean, that is beautiful.
Okay,
Thank you.
so if you have only 3 things on your life bucket list, what would they be?
Well, I'd like to become a bodhisattva and save all sentient beings from suffering. And maybe I would like to see the full ordination for women in all religious traditions.
Okay, thank you. And what have you learned during the time of the pandemic? And how will this wisdom carry you into 2022?
Ooh, I've learned to let go of expectations a lot because things are not as they used to be. We cannot expect too much of ourselves or other people because everybody's a bit stressed out. And also because we don't know if we're going to be alive or dead next week. So you might as well relax a bit, I suppose. And I hope in the coming year also, I will try to keep this frame of mind to relax expectations of myself and others.
Okay. So you get the last question.
Okay, what do you, let's see. What do you do for recreation or self-care?
Oh, beach.
Beach. Great.
By myself.
By
I
yourself.
love going to the beach by myself. Just some quiet time. Mhm.
Very nice. One local girl. Yeah. And what have you learned during this time of pandemic, and how will you carry that through into 2022?
I think during the time of pandemic, since our university didn't really shut down, we were offering classes 3 different ways. Students were there face to face, but then we're also zooming in people at the same time, and then also then had the online. So 1 class, 3 ways of teaching it. I learned to let go because and not have, as you said, expectations. Just say it's pandemic time, we can't do everything, as we try to learn new technology and things to jump through the hoops, and students were just like, you know, falling to the cracks and things. And so I think it was good wisdom to just kind of let go, and let go, let flow, or keep the calm and move on.
Wonderful.
Because
Wonderful.
nothing is, because with our one wild and precious life, as Mary Oliver said, what are we doing?
Right.
So thank you.
And we hope they learned something, right? Okay. So, okay, great. Well, now we'd like to give everybody a chance to participate. So we'd like to create some breakout groups of about maybe 4 or 5 people in each group. And our kind moderator, facilitator, technical assistant will help divide you into groups. And the question we were thinking to ask you to discuss is, what does it mean to be a friend? What does it mean to be a friend? And we'd like to ask maybe a couple people afterwards to share their ideas with the group. I hope you had a nice conversation. It's a bit short, but at least we get to know each other a little bit. So would anyone like to share how they answered to the question, or what some of the people in their group answered the question?
So you can raise your hand, or even just unmute yourself and then chime in, since we're a small group. Oh yes, Banti.
Before I say anything, I want to say hello to Karma Lekshe Tsomo. I met you in Mongolia many years ago with Shirley Johannesson, or now she's, yes. So there was a group from Canada, and I was one of them, one of the group. And I'm so delighted to be here and seeing you again and hearing you.
Wonderful.
Yes, and what I shared was that as a friend, one understands the other person and relates without judgment. And the other question was, how long? Yes, I've had some friends for about 5 years, but I have a couple of friends for many years, about 20 years or so. So yeah, that was my contribution about no judgment. You accept the person as they are and as they are, so.
Thank you. Maybe we can hear from Cornelia. Neil next.
Yes, well, I'm an extrovert, so I seek out friendship, but I have about 5 that are very close to me. I'm 68. I don't have children, but my friends have children and extended families. And if one thinks that one's life gets more simple as one gets older, it does not if you have an extended family, because there's always something going on. So it's being there, sharing experiences. As I said in my small group, I have a lot of different interests. I'm also active here in New Mexico in the political spectrum. So it's very, very spicy during these times. So but I have a feeling as we get older, we have a tendency, even without COVID, to become isolated. And I do think that friends across the spectrum help. And there are not a lot of Tibetan Buddhists in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I walk with a lot of different people from different backgrounds.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Well, we had a sort of follow-up question for a second. Oh, we have one more hand. Oh, Tamara, you want to share? Hello? Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I was in a group of 4, and we all had there was such different responses. It was one person was saying befriending people with opposite views is something that she does a lot. Another person, having a Dharma friend or a teacher or a leader was very important. And another person saying learning together and sharing together. And I said mutuality of care and respect. So it was very interesting, very different flavors.
Yeah, okay.
Good, thank you. Anne Kilby, I see your hand up.
Thank you. What I wanted to share is you asked about how long a friend. My best friend, he was a little boy and I a little girl when we met. Our fathers worked together and we simply bonded. He had siblings also, but we just bonded. It was never romantic. So I have been friends with Rusty Munch for 72 years. And we still feel the same.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Okay.
Beautiful.
Before we go to the next part, I'm going to kind of jump the gun, but when we talk about friendships and what does it mean to be a friend, sometimes there are friends that we don't really see all the time, and yet we know, may have just connected, and then yet we still carry them. And I just want to point out aloha to Beth and Goldring, because when I had met you at one of the Sakyadhita conferences, you gave me a precious little gift. And then when I opened it up, it was just a beautiful little Buddha. And so even though I don't see you except for at Sakyadhita conferences, but then there is that connection there. And to me, that is a friendship that I carry with me, even beyond space and time, and just by that generosity of your heart. And I still feel you are my friend. So aloha, Beth. Any comment to that? You can unmute yourself if you would like.
Yeah. I've been living outside the United States essentially since 1986.
Mm-hmm.
My old friendships are more than 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
There are people I don't see for 3, 4, 5 years. Thank God for Skype. It's made it a lot easier. But this business of having people in your heart over long periods without seeing them, and then the absolute delight of seeing them again, like seeing you, seeing Lekshe, I mean, that's familiar to me. And it's something that I almost take it for granted in my life. And that doesn't mean that I'm not boundlessly grateful for it. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And I feel precisely the same way about you. And I'm just really happy to be at Sakyadhita and back with everybody, even remotely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm.
One thing Beth said in our group was that a friend is someone that you think more about than yourself, which is very beautiful. And if we could extend that to the concept of unconditional love. And someone else said friendship is listening and responding. So those are further aspects of the question. We could probably talk all day about this. But let's go on to our next question, which is a little bit different in nature. What is the nature of religious identity? What does it mean to identify oneself with a particular religion or religions, or perhaps no religion? Dagmar, would you like to share what you and your group talked about in terms of religious identity?
Yes, I would love to. Like when I read the question before I went into the group, I was like, "Oh, that's a tricky one." So what I felt I learned from what we talked about is that being like also Buddhist studies scholar, I feel that my religious identity is often not really visible, because like it's academia and religion is still somehow so differently handled in different academic cultures. And then, my group helped me to understand this, what you just mentioned with the visibility, like that kind of, I can show myself religious or not in different contexts, but I kind of have a choice sometimes in collective societal situation, and I never thought about that. And yeah, it's very complex. We talked about this visibility of wearing robes, for example, being visible in the clothing, so that members of the own community or also others can identify and have kind of expectations or something about that. So it's more or less subtle often, and then also how it's tied with ethnic and cultural identities. So I found that very interesting, and I really felt like for me, I always think about Buddhist identities in the context of doing research, but actually I feel that I'm not really clear about my own religious identity. So that's all I wanted to say. I mean, there's so many pieces and parts of it. Is it the group? Is it the doctrines? Is it the own practice? The meditation practice? Is it the friends, the spiritual friends? But then also I learned so much from spiritual friends from other traditions for my development, spiritual development. So yeah, it's totally complex. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for sharing, for letting me share.
Thank you. Can we hear from Annie Lobsang Chosto next?
Thank you so much. I was lucky to be in the group with Karma Lekshe Tsomo and wonderful Venerable Jacinta and others. I realized that I was sort of grappling with the paradox, and the paradox is that I don't really feel identified this way, and yet I think of the four sights that the Buddha experienced, and the last one being a mendicant, and really, as Venerable Karma Lekshe Tsomo was saying, that it's really a symbol. We go out and we represent an alternative way of living, and that's just. But it is for me paradoxical because I don't strongly identify, and yet definitely the what we represent carries great purpose, I hope. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you.
That's important. We don't necessarily represent a specific religion, but we represent another way of living. You know, I mean, even sometimes Catholics will come up and confess to you. So they're seeing something completely beyond the robes, or they're assuming something, perhaps. You know, interesting. Someone else.
I don't know how to get my hand up on screen.
Okay. Oh, Paula. Paula, right? Aloha.
Aloha. I'll just say quickly that. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
No,
there's
that's okay.
Jennifer. Okay, so
my
let's have
unmute-
Jennifer, then Paula. Thank
My
you.
unmute wasn't there, but I think
Okay.
the difference between a monastic that you're visually representing versus in our group talked about the personal feeling of identity and how you project that into the world. And one of our participants said she was suspicious of anything that was institutionalized. And for me, I talked about how you can change. I grew up a Quaker, and it feels like family. I still at home there, but I left my family for Buddhism. And when it comes down to it, my own experience in life is the things I've learned through there has been true and reflected reality. So I'm probably biased, but I do feel like the Buddhist view has just been such a source of refuge.
Good. Thank you. Paula?
Hi. So I want to thank all of you who are willing to take on the paradox of wearing ritual clothing that identifies you as being explicitly religious of some kind, because I find that it makes the world feel warmer and safer. Even though I don't want to be identified in a specific way, I'm grateful for those who are willing to take on that mantle. So thank you.
And I'm just going to respond to Paula. So wearing robes, when I used to catch the bus, I became more of an easy target for people of attraction, and sometimes it wasn't very nice things that came out of people's mouths. But so it works both. It works in good ways. To when I walk into the hospital, then people are definitely feel more comfortable or feel more. They kind of think that, you know, I'm a presence beyond myself, and that's what, as a religious, I do try to bring, not myself, but then to bring Jesus or the divine with me. So it's not just me. But then but I remember when I was studying in my doctorate, I was, a lot of my classmates, they weren't kind of nice to me. And I was wondering, like, why? Was it because I was like one of the youngest ones in the class, or what was it? And then later on, I found out that a lot were ex-priests and nuns. And I was like, oh, you know, because I guess they were having some guilty conscience or something, because they see me, you know, young, eager to learn, kind of a nun. And then, yeah, there's some kind of a hidden. So we can then bring out the shadows of people in different ways. But then as long as, we continue to keep coming from a place of love and light, then gradually, then they also came around, and we became really nice, collegial and very nice, friends and things like that. So, anybody else have anything to share?
Yes, I think
I can share.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah. Right now I don't have really my robes on because it's so cold here in the library. But I mean, yeah, I have my robes, but not the shogu or something like that. So what I found is that when I meet other people or I'm out on the street, there's a lot of respect coming towards me. And when I form relationships, I don't have to worry about, for example, if I meet a male person with other friends together, I don't need to worry about emotional or sexual attractiveness, because I'm clearly a monastic that is not interested in such relationships, but in more deeper relationships, in a way that I'm interested in helping another person or interested in spirituality to support another, to have spiritual discussions and a spiritual friendship, so to say. So that goes together, the first question you had, and then religious identities. So I like to combine that. And I mentioned in our discussion group briefly that before I became a nun, before I identified myself more with the religious tradition of Buddhism, was I could not identify myself really to anything else than being a German. And then when I met Buddhism, then it was like, wow, I met something that is so meaningful, so deep to my heart that I have never found before. So religious identity actually is meeting myself. Yeah, that was very interesting to discover. So religion is just the purpose to come to something that seems to be more like visible, or I don't know how to describe really, but it's something to meet what is already within. Yeah, and I feel like, for example, Sister Malia Wong and Karma Lekshe Tsomo, you know, you have practiced for such a long time. I haven't practiced for such a long time like you, and you embody it, you know. So, for example, there's something, this joy and the peace and the friendliness. It's something I think religion helps us to find that within. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Champa. Cornelia.
Sister Molly, I'll share with all of you. I grew up in a religious community, Dubuque, Iowa. I'm 68, so it was 66% Catholic. And children either went to the Catholic schools or they went to the Protestant schools, which were the public schools. So we had a division. And if anybody was rude to a nun, Protestant or Catholic, they would get spanked. That was when corporal punishment was still used. But our sisters were highly valued, and we have a college there. We have University of Dubuque, Iowa, plus a Loras College, which is the guys' college, and Clark College, which is the women's college. And the nuns were who my mother studied with once she got married and she wanted to further her art career. So that's sort of the monastic religious tradition that we had from the Middle Ages, I think, that sort of continued in this small Iowa community and respect. So scholars, there's a great history of scholarship in our monastic communities.
Thank you. Beth.
I do keep talking too much, but you know, my robes are Zen robes, which means a white underrobe and a black overrobe, and either the kind of bib I'm wearing or this big overrobe. And, you know, I live in Cambodia, and that's not either what the monks wear or what the nuns wear. So it was when I first got here, I was still in love with my robes because I'd only been in them for a couple of years. But I quickly learned that it was not the most productive way to dress, to be at home and to be easy for other people. And especially when I started doing AIDS work, which was very hands-on, you know, Japanese sleeves go down to the floor sometimes. And, you know, when you're climbing on the bed with the patient to do Reiki, you just don't want that. So what I did, I couldn't wear a semplot, a sarong, because they just fall off and I hate them. So I dressed in black trousers and the kind of white shirt that these people call achars, who are kind of lay administrator, ritual specialists in the Watts wear, and a black and white krama. And, you know, with my bald head, I became easy. I mean, is it a man or a woman? Is it Christian or Buddhist? Is it, you know, all of these were questions, but I was much more integrated into being familiar in the community. And I found that one of the best choices I've ever made in my life, because it took the attention away from me, and it took me out of the, well, I'm not really, you know, those nuns aren't real nuns, and I'm really, God help me. But it took me away from all that into, you know, how can I actually be of service, and how can my presence, while visibly religious, be familiar and put people at ease. So, you know, the robing question is just, you know, I'm so grateful that I found that answer. And now I'm just, you know, I'm the only foreign woman in Phnom Penh who shaves her head, and everybody sort of recognizes me in the street, and, you know. But I think, Sister Malia, you're, you know, when you say it's recognized as embodying this, and Lekshe, when you, it recognized as embodying a certain kind of life, that the visible symbols of that embodiment can have a tremendous, tremendous range of flexibility. So thank you, and sorry to talk so much.
Stay. I think it works both ways, you know, it's that one identifies to others and they know that they can talk with you, they can trust you, but it also is an identity that we take for ourselves, that in the Tibetan tradition, traditionally, when we put on the robes, it's a ritual, and it reminds us of our dedication, our vocation, as the Catholics say, that, you know, we're wearing the robes of that the Buddha wore, in theory, right? And so it's to remind us of the lifestyle we've chosen, the way of life that we've chosen. So it has meaning both ways. But then that calls us to question, does what we wear really necessarily represent who we are? Anyway, that's probably another question. Somebody else like to share?
I will. Hi, my name is Marcia. I'm studying to be an Orthodox rabbi. I was very honored to be invited here. I'm very interested in interfaith issues. I'm not very visibly Jewish. Unless you are Jewish, then you can tell that I'm religious based on the way that I dress, but it's a very subtle code. But because I'm a woman, men have an outfit to wear, you know, they have long black coats and black hats and beards. Women don't have that. And sometimes that's represented a safety. My great grandmother would tell the story of, she lived in Russia, and she would be the one of the daughters, she would be the one to be sent out to get groceries at the town where non-Jews lived, because they would be less likely to kill her because she looked the least Jewish for whatever reason. So she didn't dress any differently. She just was the least Jewish looking in the Russian mind. So she was the one who was sent out. Whereas now, women who are religious sometimes look for ways to show our Judaism, though with other religions, so that we can like see, like when I see religious Jews represented in media, I'm always happy for the most part, sometimes not so much. I hope they're on their good behavior. But you see it and you say, okay, yeah, I know that that person is religious. I have something in common with them. Or even just, I know that person is Jewish because they're wearing a Jewish star around their neck. I have something in common with them. And it's a way of, when you're a religious minority, sussing out who looks like every other, in that most of the Jews in America are white in terms of visually, sussing out who you can talk to, who is going to, you know, speak your language, and know where you can get kosher food that you can eat. So it's not like uncommon for me to, if I'm in a hospital And once I was in the hospital, and Jews have this thing called a chesed room, which is a room where people come and bring kosher food and put it in hospitals so that Jews who are religious and can't eat normal hospital food will know there's a special room to go to for our food. And they usually lock it so that, just random people don't come and take the food, because it's meant for people who need it. And so once I was in hospital, and I saw a woman walking down the hallway, and I saw that she had a long black skirt on, out of season. And I said, I know this. And I went up to her and said, where's the chesed room? And do you know the number for the code for the door? And she said, oh yeah, it's over there. And the code is 625. Like, knew, like, and like, if I'd asked a nurse, she would have had no idea, despite working there, that there was like a secret Jew room where we had food for religious people to eat while they're in the hospital. And I hadn't looked up the code like online ahead of time, but I just knew, like, that person's dressed Jewish, I bet she knows. And I'm usually right. So it's a way of sharing resources and a way of finding community when you're in a minority situation. But that's it. I wish I did have robes, because I really don't like making clothing decisions. So if I could just have that taken care of for the rest of my life, that would just be fine. Shopping for clothing is terrible. Anyway, thank you.
It is a kind of freedom to wear the same thing every day. Of course, you could do it as a layperson too, right? But society expects something different. Maybe one question we could throw out is, what's the difference between ordinary friendship and spiritual friendship? Is there a difference?
Cornelia?
Sure. I think in Tibetan Buddhism, we have, here, let me get my video out. We have a text called Words of My Perfect Teacher, and there is actually an outline for spiritual friends. I have a Sangha that I work with in Westminster, Lopen Rinpoche, and it's a Sangha of about 50 active people, and we support one another in our spiritual activities, our meditation. We take classes together. We discuss the texts that we're learning from, and we also support one another as we walk through life. So it's a different type of friendship that one has versus the people that I walk with that are outside of my Sangha. Now, if it's a very religious person, we have a strong Catholic tradition in New Mexico. Fortunately, since I've grown up in a strong Catholic community, it's, I can go to midnight mass, I can go to, I'll go to communions and things like that. So I support the person in their faith. I don't contradict them or argue with them. It's just good manners, and listen to them when they articulate what their foundational beliefs are. So they're two different types of spiritual friends, for me at least.